Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to address Congress this week, and there will be one notable absence: Vice President Kamala Harris. The presumptive Democratic nominee declined to attend on July 15th and now will be out of town for a campaign event. As vice president, Harris has a seat reserved right behind the lectern Netanyahu will be using, but already last week, Biden's campaign scheduled her to speak at an event in Indianapolis. That probably wasn't an accident, a former senior administration official said, speculating that Biden's Sunday announcement isn't likely to bring her back to Washington on Wednesday, as the White House will even more so want to avoid clips of her applauding or remaining seated during certain lines of Netanyahu's speech. With Harris poised to replace Joe Biden on the top of the 2024 ticket, her absence has many wondering if there will be a shift in foreign policy should she beat Trump. Tariq Bosch, who was a Biden policy advisor in the education department, said he's cautiously optimistic that Harris would be more willing to consider policy changes that center Palestinian human rights and curb Israel's continued actions in Gaza and elsewhere. Harris called for a ceasefire in Gaza before Biden did, he said, and she comes from a younger generation than the president. She has said on multiple occasions that she supports a two-state solution. Frankly, it's hard to imagine any Democrat have a worse approach to the genocide than Biden, given his complete resistance to any shift over the last 10 months. Additionally, as senator, Harris supported a two-state solution and reportedly privately pushed Biden to be stronger on Netanyahu over the civilian death toll in Gaza. One of the co-founders of the Vote Uncommitted campaign said voters may be more receptive to Harris than they were with Biden. While by no means a champion of the cause, I've heard numerous people note that Vice President Harris exhibited a deeply different emotional reaction to the stories of Palestinian suffering than President Biden. While the vice president is limited, many feel that she would be an improvement from Biden's severe lack of empathy for Palestinians and his ties to the AIPAC old guard in the party. However, challenging AIPAC's power within the Democratic Party establishment remains a formidable task regardless of who the nominee is. Others are understandably less optimistic there will be a shift in foreign policy under a Harris administration. Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter and foreign policy critic Chris Hedges posted on X, "The Democratic Party refuses to accept its responsibility for the capture of democratic institutions by a rapacious oligarchy. The grotesque social inequality, the cruelty of predatory corporations, and an unchecked militarism. The Democrats will anoint another amoral politician, probably Harris, to use as a mask for outsized corporate greed, the folly of endless war, the facilitation of genocide, and the assault on our most basic civil liberties." Cenk, is there anything worth reading into around her avoiding this Netanyahu speech? And do you think there will be a meaningful shift in foreign policy under a potential President Harris?
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
Hard to tell. So first of all, Democrats don't vary from each other much at all. And it's usually just the administrative state that really takes care of policy. In fact, Kamala Harris was going to give a speech in March that was more sympathetic to Palestinians, and the National Security Council made her revise the speech. So who's really in charge? And if I was the vice president, that's not how it would have played out, but she did revise the speech. Now, having said that, she has been more open to Palestinian rights and stopping the slaughter in Gaza than Biden has. So it's marginally better. Will she, I mean, look, everyone acknowledges that the differences will be small. So do I appreciate that she's not going to meet with Netanyahu? Good, great, wonderful, if that's really true. Maybe she doesn't attend the speech, but again, let's see what happens. I'd be pretty surprised if she didn't meet with Netanyahu, because that would mean she was politically savvy, because that's a good way to get younger voters back, Arab and Muslim voters back. So if she sticks with that, terrific, but there'll be tremendous pressure to do exactly what Israel asks, commands, depending on how you want to frame it. And as president, will she cut off funding to Israel if they continue war crimes? About a 0% chance. So I guess I'll take slightly better rhetoric, but I don't want to get anybody getting their hopes up and thinking that, oh yeah, now we're gonna have a new policy and she's gonna be able to get a two-state solution. She's gonna change the minds of the Israeli officials and she's gonna be tough on them. I don't think any of that's gonna happen, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not super optimistic. I think it will just be nicer rhetoric, which to me doesn't matter. When people are still being killed, when people are still dying, you still have a high civilian death toll. Nicer rhetoric doesn't change anything. We've seen the president's press secretary and national security advisors try nice rhetoric. It doesn't change anything on the ground, doesn't change their circumstances. So that's one front I don't think we can expect much on. But also, I don't think she would change course on Ukraine funding or heightening tensions with China. I don't expect anything different. And that isn't all her fault, or hypothetically all her fault. That's just because we have such a powerful military industrial complex that you're just kind of thrown in there. I always fear what a Bernie Sanders presidency would have looked like, especially on that front, because I don't think one person can change that entire machine. As much as I liked Bernie and wanted him to be the candidate and the president, I don't know what it would have looked like. Maybe some substantive changes, but that is such a powerful force in Washington, and you have to wrangle Congress for budget bills and appropriations bills. I just don't know if he would have been able to beat all of that lobbying power, all of those members of Congress who are loyal to the military industrial complex. So it's not entirely her fault that nothing will probably change. It is a systemic problem, and she just might be the latest victim to it.
Okay, let me give you the last couple of points here on both sides. So her top foreign policy advisor is Philip Gordon, and he's pretty good. He's been adamantly against regime change, including through sanctions. That's good. And he thought it was a terrible mistake to get out of the Iran peace deal and thinks we should get back in. That's really good. So her top foreign policy advisor, as good as you could hope for within the Democratic Party. Great. On the other hand, Aaron David Miller is a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and this is how he explains Kamala Harris's Israel policy, and this rings true to me. He said, when it comes to Israel, she has very moderate views. To the left of what Biden is prepared to do, but way to the right of those who argue we need to impose costs and consequences on Israel to make it clear we're the superpower and they're not. So bottom line is a little to the left of Biden on Israel, but she's gonna impose no consequences and no cost to Israel, which means, again, if this person is correct, and he probably is, no change at all. Because rhetoric can go take a long goddamn walk. I'm not interested in it. I agree with Jordan on that. I'm interested in, are you gonna make a difference? And the only way you can make a difference is if you withhold the money. But that would take extraordinary courage because you would have let's be honest, you would have a donor revolt, you would have AIPAC spending tens of millions of dollars against you, etc. And Democratic leaders have, I don't know that they've ever showed that kind of courage in my lifetime. So you're not gonna get much change there. But in terms of foreign policy, she's marginally in a better direction. In terms of Israel, you'd be crazy to think that we're gonna change anything. Last strand of hope is that the second dude, her husband, Doug Emhoff, is Jewish American, and they celebrate all the holidays, etc. And why is that hopeful? Because my sense of American politics, and you could agree, disagree, etc., but non-Jewish Americans are a little bit more hesitant in criticizing Israel because AIPAC and every other person on the pro-right-wing Israel side is gonna scream anti-Semite at the top of their lungs, and it scares the living crap out of them, right? But Bernie Sanders, Jamie Raskin, perhaps Doug Emhoff, we don't really know, and hence Kamala Harris, have a little bit more leeway to say, hey, as a friend, ally, let's get Israel to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. Will that really make a difference? There's no way of knowing. And do we know Emhoff's actual opinions on Israel, right wing, left wing on that issue? Not really. So a strand of hope, but not much.
One thing though, so you might remember in 2019 during the primary, there was a big push to prevent Democratic candidates from attending the AIPAC conference. And many of them took pledges and committed saying they wouldn't go. Harris took that pledge. It was encouraging. And then it turned out that all she did was just invite top AIPAC folks to her office on the Hill instead of going to the conference. So it was just like one of those moments, like the quintessential politician, both sides moments where, yeah, you're not going to the convention itself, but you're just bringing them to your office. It just felt kind of seedy. So I just don't know. And she's taken a lot of AIPAC money. I don't expect a lot of difference from her on this.
Yeah. I mean, the chances of the US changing Israeli policy or changing our policy towards Israel has always been close to zero. So it just remains there. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.